Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're going to get into something quite a few of you have actually asked about, which is vaginal health. And more specifically, we're looking at cytolytic vaginosis, CV for short. Now, you've probably heard a lot more about things like, bacterial vaginosis, BV, or yeast infections. But CV is, well, it's a really important and kind of fascinating piece of this whole picture.
It really is. Yeah, BV and yeast infections, they get most of the attention, but cytolytic vaginosis, CV, it's different. What's really surprising right from the start is that the problem with CV isn't a bad bacteria or yeast. It's actually an overgrowth of the bacteria we normally think of as beneficial, the lactobacillus.
Well, okay, so the good guys are causing the issue.
Essentially, yes, it really underlines how incredibly delicate that balance is inside our bodies.
Huh. It's like your security guards suddenly deciding to block all the entrances because there are just too many of them doing their job too well.
That's actually a way to put it, yeah. These normally helpful lactobacillus just ramp up their activity, producing far too much lactic acid. And that excess acid, it makes the vaginal environment way too acidic, throwing that crucial pH balance completely off.
Right. And that's what causes the symptoms then, the itching, the burning.
Ghastly. That hyperacidic environment leads straight to the common complaints.
Yeah.
Itching, burning, maybe some discharge, just general irritation. But here's the tricky part, and it's a big one, those symptoms. They sound exactly like BV or yeast infection.
Ah, okay, so it's easy to mistake it.
Very easy.
Which could lead someone to use the wrong treatment, right? Like grabbing an antifungal thinking it's yeast when it's actually CV. That wouldn't help.
It could actually make things worse, yeah. And if this overgrowth, this CV, isn't properly identified and, addressed, can it cause longer-term problems?
That's a good question.
It definitely can. It can set up a cycle of chronic discomfort, frustration. It's
Wow.
not just a fleeting thing. So, yeah, let's really break down how this lactobacillus overgrowth actually causes all these problems.
Okay, yeah, let's dig into that. How does having, too much of these usually helpful lactobacillus bacteria actually mess things up?
Well, it really comes down to the vaginal microbiome's equilibrium. It's a delicate balance. Normally, lactobacillus are the main residents, you could say. They're like the guardians. They produce lactic acid, which keeps the vaginal pH slightly acidic, usually somewhere between 3.8 and 4.5.
Right, and that acidity keeps the bad guys out, basically.
Precisely. It stops most harmful bacteria and yeast from gaining a foothold. It's a fantastic natural defense.
Okay, so they're the protectors, usually. But with CV, that protection system kind of goes haywire.
Exactly. It backfires. This overgrowth of lactobacillus leads to a few key problems. First, as we mentioned, is overacidification. Just way too much lactic acid makes the pH plummet. And this super acidic environment, well, it starts to irritate and can even damage the sensitive vaginal lining. That causes the burning, the itching,
Yeah.
and it can even create tiny little injuries, micro tears.
Oh, wow. Microtears. That sounds like it could cause other problems, too.
It can, ironically, those micro tears can actually make you more susceptible to other infections getting in.
Huh. It's like trying to clean something with a chemical that's so strong it ends up damaging the surface you're trying to protect.
That's a really good analogy, yeah, spot on. And secondly, tied into this, is chronic inflammation. The tissues are just constantly irritated by this acidity. This means persistent itching, burning, just ongoing discomfort that can, wear you down and potentially get worse over time.
And this leads right back to the misdiagnosis issue, doesn't it? Because those symptoms, the itching, the burning, maybe some unusual discharge, they scream yeast infection or BV to most people.
Exactly. That's where the confusion really sets in. Someone feels those symptoms, assumes it's yeast, uses an antifungal.
Or thinks it's BV and maybe gets antibiotics.
Right. And if it's actually CV, those treatments can disrupt the microbiome even more. They might kill off other beneficial bacteria, making the imbalance worse. Trying to fix a leaky faucet by turning the water pressure up, you're addressing the wrong thing.
Wow. Okay. That sounds incredibly frustrating for someone going through it. And you also mentioned it could lead to increased susceptibility to secondary infections. How does that work?
Well, think about it. The environment is out of whack. The acidity is wrong. The balance is off because of the lactobacillus dominance. This creates an opening. Other opportunistic bugs, maybe yeast that would normally overgrow, other less friendly bacteria, they see a chance to multiply. And that can lead to those awful cycles of recurring infections.
So even though it starts with too much of the good bacteria, the whole neighborhood gets disrupted. It's not just about numbers. It's about the community, the harmony.
Precisely. Which leads to the final point here. a fundamentally disrupted vaginal microbiome. CV might begin with too many lactobacillus, but the end result is that the overall diversity and stability of the vaginal flora are compromised. The whole ecosystem becomes more vulnerable long-term. It really highlights that it's not just about having beneficial bacteria, it's about having the right balance and diversity.
Okay, that paints a really clear picture of the problem. So, knowing all that, let's talk about solutions. How can someone support their vaginal health if they, suspect or know they're dealing with CV? It sounds like a really tricky balancing act, right? You need to calm down the lactobacillus without getting rid of them completely because they are important.
That's exactly it. It's nuanced. The goal isn't elimination, it's restoration of balance. We want to gently encourage the lactobacillus activity back to a healthy level. And the strategies generally involve a few things: looking at diet and lifestyle, maybe some careful pH management, and then considering things like targeted probiotics and natural anti-inflammatory support.
Okay, so what specific approaches do the sources mention?
Well, a big one is trying to restore microbial balance. The idea is that specific other beneficial probiotic strains might help regulate the dominant lactobacillus. Strains like Lactobacillus acidophilus, which sounds counterintuitive, but different strains have different roles. L. rhamnosus, L. reuteri, L. plantarum, and also B. coagulans are mentioned. The thinking is introducing a more diverse team of good bacteria might help create a more balanced environment overall, maybe tempering that overgrowth.
Ah, okay. Like bringing in different specialists to help a department that's gotten a bit too powerful and is causing log jams.
Hmm.
Makes sense. What about tackling the inflammation caused by all that acid?
That's definitely key for comfort and healing, so reducing inflammation. The sources point to natural things like aloe vera and reishi mushroom. These are known for their soothing properties. They can help calm down that irritation in the vaginal tissues and maybe support the healing of those little micro tears we talked about.
And is there anything to help the body kind of regulate itself better to make it less likely for this overgrowth to happen again?
Yes, that's another angle enhancing immune function. The idea is to support the body's own ability to maintain balance. Nutrients like arabinogalactin, which is a type of fiber, and again, reishi mushroom are mentioned here. They can potentially help strengthen the body's natural defenses to maintain a stable vaginal environment and fight off any secondary infections trying to take hold.
So basically boosting the body's own management system.
Got it. And the last piece seems to be protecting against those secondary infections directly.
Exactly. The fourth strategy is protecting against secondary infections. This is where natural antimicrobial agents come in, like oregano leaf extract and caprylic acid. These can help control potentially opportunistic pathogens like yeast or unfriendly bacteria without necessarily harming the beneficial lactobacillus you want to keep in balance.
Okay, so those are the general strategies. Now, the materials we looked at also specifically mention a product called Balance Complex. It's positioned as a sort of comprehensive solution. Yeah, Balance Complex comes up as a dietary supplement. It's described as being scientifically formulated to tackle those areas we just discussed, supporting microbial balance, reducing inflammation, and boosting immune function for overall vaginal health. They call it the original vaginal probiotic, say it's been around for over 10 years, sold millions of capsules, and apparently has a lot of positive reviews.
Okay, so it has some history. What are the main selling points they highlight?
Well, they stress it's specifically for women, has a high probiotic count, 100 billion CFU per gram is mentioned, and uniquely includes cranberry and D-mannose, which people often link to urinary health.
Ah, interesting combo.
Yeah, and they also mention, over 17,800 five-star reviews on Amazon, a 17-in-1 strain blend for broad support, non-GMO, made in regulated facilities, and they offer a money-back guarantee.
Okay, quite a few claims there. Let's break down what's actually in it. How do the ingredients in Balance Complex line up with managing something like CV?
Right, so it has a vaginal probiotic blend at that high potency. It includes Lactobacillus acidophilus, which again sounds odd, but certain strains help regulate lactic acid. Lactobacillus rhamnosus, often linked to overall balance and immune support. Lactobacillus reuteri, which is thought to help mucosal immunity like the vaginal lining and reduce inflammation. Lactobacillus plantarum, which has antioxidant properties and might help with tissue repair. And Bacillus coagulans, a spore-forming one that's thought to be good for long-term balance. So this blend seems designed to promote a diverse, healthy microbiome.
Okay, so that blend targets the core balance issue. What about the cranberry and D-mannose? You said that's usually for urinary health. How does that fit with CV?
That's a fair question. CV isn't a UTI, but the thinking is likely preventative. When the vaginal microbiome is off, maybe the risk of urinary issues increases slightly. So the cranberry helps stop bacteria sticking to the urinary tract lining, and D-mannose helps flush them out. Crucially, D-mannose does this without messing with the vaginal microbiome itself, unlike some antibiotics might.
Gotcha. So it's like an added layer of protection for a related system.
Oh, yeah.
What about those natural antimicrobials we talked about? Are they in there?
Yes. It contains oregano leaf extract that's got a reputation as a natural antimicrobial against various unwanted bacteria and fungi, and also caprylic acid, which is a fatty acid known for its antifungal properties, potentially helping keep yeast in check and restore balance.
And I saw enzymes listed, protease and cellulase. What are they doing in a vaginal health supplement?
Oh, yeah, protease and cellulase, their role is likely related to breaking down biofilms.
Biofilms.
Yeah, think of them as protective shields or slimy layers that some undesirable microbes can build around themselves. These biofilms make them harder for your immune system or even treatments to deal with. So these enzymes help break down that protective layer, potentially making those microbes easier to manage.
Interesting. Like taking down their defenses
Okay.
and reducing inflammation. How does the complex address that?
It includes aloe vera leaf, which is pretty well known for soothing and anti-inflammatory effects that can help calm irritation and support healing. And reishi mushroom is in there too, which we mentioned before. It has both anti-inflammatory and immune-supporting benefits.
Right. And there were a few others. Arabinogalactin, anise seed, black walnut hulls, wormwood. Quick rundown on those.
Sure. Arabinogalactin is there mainly for immune support. Anise seed offers some antimicrobial action and can be soothing. Black walnut hulls have traditional uses against bacteria and fungi and might help with detoxification, maybe preventing recurrence. Wormwood is another traditional ingredient used against microbial issues and to support immunity.
Okay, it definitely sounds like they tried to cover a lot of bases with that formula, hitting those different strategies we discussed. Now, moving beyond supplements for a moment, what other practical, everyday tips came up in the sources for managing CV?
Yeah, absolutely. Lifestyle stuff is really important too.
Yeah.
First off, avoiding overwashing, especially with harsh soaps or douching products. These can totally strip away the good bacteria and disrupt that delicate balance even further. Gentler is better.
Okay, so less is more when it comes to cleaning down there. Makes sense.
Definitely. Another suggestion was using baking soda baths.
Ooh, how does that help?
Well, baking soda is alkaline, right? So it can help temporarily neutralize some of that excess acidity in the vagina that's causing the burning and irritation with CV. You can offer some immediate relief. The usual advice is like 1 or 2 tablespoons in a warm bath, soak for maybe 15-20 minutes.
Simple enough and sounds potentially quite soothing. What else?
Wearing breathable cotton underwear is a classic for a reason. Avoid really tight clothes too. It just helps reduce moisture buildup and potential irritation.
Good point.
Staying well hydrated, drinking enough water is good for everything, including vaginal health. And finally, thinking about diet, including probiotic-rich foods like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi. These fermented foods can support your gut microbiome, which we know is connected to vaginal health too.
Right, the gut-vagina axis, yeah. All good. Practical advice. Now, one last thing mentioned in the material was a website, vaginalquiz.com. What's the story there?
Yeah, vaginalquiz.com, that's vaginalquiz.com. It's presented as a tool, basically, for anyone who wants to understand their own vaginal health a bit better. They call it a quick science-backed quiz that gives you a personalized vaginal health analysis really quickly, like under 2 minutes.
Okay, like a rapid self-check kind of thing. Who's it aimed at?
It seems geared towards people maybe experiencing recurring infections or dealing with dryness, maybe low libido, or just, general worries about their intimate health. The idea is to offer quick, free, private insights. It's for women who want some real answers about what might be going on.
And what do you actually get from taking the quiz?
So after you complete it, it says you get a custom breakdown of your vaginal health profile. It might point out potential imbalances based on your answers, and then it provides expert-backed suggestions tailored to your symptoms and lifestyle. That could mean recommending certain habits, diet changes, or maybe even specific supplements.
Okay, so it's positioned as maybe a first step to get more informed before or maybe alongside talking to a doctor. Obviously not a replacement for actual medical diagnosis.
Exactly. It's framed more as an educational tool to empower you to understand your body better and maybe think about proactive steps. The sources definitely encourage listeners who are curious to check out vaginalquiz.com.
Got it. Sounds like a potentially useful starting point for some listeners. So wrapping this all up, it's really struck me how cytolytic vaginosis is truly its own thing. It needs a different lens compared to how we usually think about vaginal infections.
Absolutely. I think the biggest takeaway is this paradox. The very bacteria we rely on, lactobacillus, can become the source of the problem if they overgrow. It really underscores the importance of balance.
Yeah, and managing it isn't about wiping the slate clean. It's about that careful, balanced approach. Gentle reduction of the overactivity, supporting the environment, maybe using targeted probiotics or anti-inflammatories like those in Balance Complex, alongside those smart lifestyle choices.
That's right. It's all about respecting and supporting that incredibly complex vaginal ecosystem.
It really is complex, which, considering this delicate balance we've been talking about with the vaginal microbiome, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? What other seemingly healthy or beneficial bacteria elsewhere in our body might cause unexpected problems if their populations get thrown out of balance?
Hmm. That's a really interesting thought to end on. Definitely food for thought.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much for walking us through all of that today. Really fascinating stuff.